Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we talk all things Colorado Rockies. And hey, look, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If you don't celebrate, I'm still glad you're here. I'm glad we can all gather up in this holiday season. It could be a little cold where you are, it could be, snow on the ground. And this place will keep you warm. I'll tell you that right now. That's what we do here at Rockies Daily. No gifts this year for me, but I'll keep you warm. And this first story might keep you a little warm is we're talking about the first base position once again. Ryan O'Hearn, what could have been a potential target for the Rockies, he's gone to the Pittsburgh Pirates, which means that position group at first base, it continues to dwindle. And the more we talk about it, the more the question becomes, will someone be brought into play first? In our last show, we talked about Charlie Condon possibly being the guy playing first base. And I know we have focused on this position a lot, but I do think it's important to talk about each and every day just because this is one of the bigger question marks of, hey, it's a positional need and there's affordable options out there that can play in the short term. It's one of the interesting spots for free agency and the Colorado Rockies. And one player that we haven't talked about on the show is Nathaniel Lowe, who was most recently with the Boston Red Sox. He's had pretty much a career slugging of over 400, but struggled last year, batted about 228 with a 381 slugging. This could be a cheap and affordable option. Once again, that's what we're looking at. As the costs and prices for everything bumps up, the cost for Nathaniel Lowe is going down. And that we can be thankful for because he could be a potential first baseman for the Rockies. He still has some pop in his bat, and really, when he was traded to Boston midway through the year last year, he actually improved. He had over a 400 slugging and had some key hits for the Red Sox down the stretch, and it could once again be a veteran presence that the Rockies desperately need. This team is a bunch of infants. It's a bunch of babies who are just begging for some milk. That's weird. That doesn't make sense. But it is a young team. And bringing in veterans can only help. It can only help solidify things in this lineup. And I think bringing in someone like Nathaniel Lowe, once again, he might give you some pop in the lineup that you just desperately need. So this is another name that the Rockies could go after. The longer this offseason goes, the more unlikely it becomes the Rockies go after a long-term deal. Instead, you're going to see, obviously, some minor league contracts, which we'll get to someone actually at the end of the show. But it's also just more unlikely they're going to sign someone long-term. But a 1 or 2 year deal for Lowe might be actually perfect for Colorado. As once again, we're waiting on one of the few prospects that are really exciting in this Rockies farm system. And we talk about that because it transitions nicely into the Rockies' only top 20 prospect in Ethan Holiday. Holiday is one of two top 100 prospects that the Rockies have, Ethan Holiday and Charlie Condon, who we've talked a lot about on this show. And for Holiday, this is probably one of the more exciting draft picks that the Rockies have had. One, obviously because he's the son of Matt Holiday. But two, the kid just has a ton of pop in his bat. He is the youngest prospect, or the second youngest prospect in the top 20. So he's really only going to climb in terms of his ranking. There's a lot of rumors that he's even better than his brother Jackson Holiday. He's much more like his dad, where he's got a lot of power. He'll probably play third base or somewhere in the infield. But this is a really exciting thing for the Colorado Rockies to have someone like Holiday. Obviously, the one caveat is he's probably not going to be ready until 2028, 2029. Because if you want to date yourself, he was actually born in February of 2007, the same year that the Colorado Rockies went to the World Series. So, if that doesn't make you feel old, I don't know what will. But for Holiday, just another exciting prospect for the Rockies. And I think the question probably becomes for the front office, hey, we've got, one of our better prospects that we've had in a while. How do we make sure that when he's ready, this team is ready? Because you don't want to be in the same position you are in now for when Ethan Holiday is called up. You'd rather much be in a more competitive situation so that you're bringing in some much-needed firepower to really solidify everything. So I think that will be the question. I'm sure that's what the front office is thinking. Maybe not that far into the future. Hey, what are we going to do in 2029? But in reality, it's, hey, let's start building pieces. So by the time Holiday's ready, we've got an infield that's solidified, an outfield that's solidified, and now we're just bringing in someone into the mix that will help us compete for the division, for playoff appearances, for just making a deep push. Because I think that's truly just what we want, is a team that can be competitive. We talk about it every now and then, but just give us something that's competitive. That's not crazy. That is not crazy. That's what all fans want their teams to be. Is we just want to be in the game. We want to be in a divisional race. We want to be pushing for a deep playoff run. Because really, outside of 2007, this team hasn't done anything. I think their next biggest accomplishment is a wild card win against the Chicago Cubs. And that just can't cut it for an organization that's been around for, now close to 30 years. So because of that, there's just a lot of things that this front office needs to do. But I want to talk about Ethan Holiday because he's obviously probably one of the most exciting things for the Colorado Rockies. It's that connection to his dad. It's that connection to Colorado. It is something that I think as fans we should be pretty stoked about. I think we all wish he was ready in 2026 just because of the state, or 2027 just because of the state of the team and just needing kind of a feel-good story, for lack of better terms. But obviously we want Holiday to develop. We want to give him that time. But when he is ready, I think that is going to be, hopefully the Rockies will be in a much better spot than they're in right now. But figured we'd talk about Holiday just because we're in that season of giving. We're in the season of holiday cheer. And I think Holiday brings us that holiday cheer. So how about that? Let's talk about something that kind of brings down the mood a little, and that's talking about our starting rotation, the Rockies starting rotation, because right now it feels like they have three locks for who will be starting when it comes to opening day. We've got Kyle Freeland, Chase Dollander, and most likely Ryan Feltner. Those are going to be three guys that are probably going to be on the bump when the season kicks off. Then we've got a few other guys, though, that we're not really sure who will be in this starting rotation. You start with Tanner Gordon, who he did have about 15 appearances last year with the Rockies, 6.3 ERA and a WHIP of 1.5. Not great, but he's probably going to be the number 4, number 5 guy. McCade Brown obviously also had 7 starts last year. He had a 7.3 ERA. With a WHIP of 1.8. So you mentioned that, it's like, oh, it only gets worse. Now, Brown is only 25. Tanner Gordon is 28. They're both relatively young. So that's where it's like, okay, they're at least a little bit younger. There's still time to develop, and that's something you'll see in the spring and in the winter. It's just some development for these players. And then you have Bradley Blaylock, who is also another young pitcher. He's 24 years old. In his time in the major leagues last year, 9.3 ERA, a WHIP that's even higher than Brown's at 1.84. It just, gosh, it's just hard to get excited about that, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it because they're all young, and that's what we just have to tell ourselves. They're young guys. They're going to be good. They're just young, that's all. Just young and foolish, and once they mature into men, they will just be ready. So those are the three guys that were all at the major league level that we most likely will see, right, for those last two spots in the starting rotations. Not to say all three of those guys won't pitch. I bet all three will start at some point next year, especially as the Rockies figure out how they want to build this thing out. Then you obviously have Gabriel Hughes. He's a prospect. He had Tommy Johns back in 2023, missed 24 before pitching in the spring in 2025. Sean Sullivan, also another prospect. He's only 22 years old. So Sullivan is probably the most unlikely to make a an appearance in this starting rotation, but you never know. It really just depends on how the guys in front of him perform. Hughes is interesting as well, also only 24 years old. But it's important to talk about this rotation because there's still a lot of room to grow, and there's still plenty of open spots. And so this feels like it'll probably be Freeland's last time being the opening day starter. And there's a chance Dollander actually takes that from him this upcoming season. It just really depends on what spring looks like. But it feels like Freeland might still just have a little bit of that edge to be the opening day guy. But then after that, obviously those are 1-2 in terms of Dollander and Freeland. After that, 3 through 5 will kind of be interesting to follow. But starting pitching, that's always been the issue for the Rockies for the past 2-3 decades. And I think it's going to be an issue again this year. You just look at what they have on paper, and it's hard to have 5 guys that are going to be great, right? But you want at least 3 guys to really be able to hold their own. And Freeland had a better second half of the season. And I do think Dollander is going to figure it out. Feltner's okay, but it's going to be another tough year. And the Rockies are going to win and lose a lot of games, 10-5, 7-6 type of games, right? And that's where the lineup has to just be a little bit better. But it's probably going to be a long season for the starting rotation, at least on paper. Then finally, let's end on a good story. Let's talk about Jack O'Dowd, who his father also happened to be a Rocky. Dan O'Dowd, the former GM, was the GM for the Rockies from 1999 to 2014. In that span, had a couple of playoff appearances, obviously was part of that 2007 run. And now his son, who was undrafted out of Texas, he played in an independent league with the Billing Mustangs, and now he's a Colorado Rocky, and he was phenomenal in that Independence League. He had a .333 batting average, .642 slugging, and a 1.091 OPS in 84 games. So it's a minor league deal. We'll see what actually happens. But for O'Dowd, this is actually pretty darn exciting. Just having another guy, having kind of another legacy player for the Colorado Rockies. We'll see what happens. He probably would be something like he might play first, second, listed as a catcher, but we'll see. It'll be fun to see him in spring training, see what he can actually do at the major league level. But it is a fun connection to have for the Rockies, right? We mentioned Ethan Holiday. Now O'Dowd is part of this organization, so it's pretty sweet to see. It's another fun minor league signing for the Colorado Rockies. But until we get to the spring, we'll see what he's actually capable of when he goes against more major league talent. But until then, as I said at the top of the show, I hope you had a very wonderful Christmas and holiday season. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.